Hi, ladies. My name is Sherry Parrott, and I am a pastor's wife in Platte City, Missouri. Trying to hold this camera right. I want to say thank you to Erin for being my friend and for inviting me to be here for this devotional today. I appreciate the devotionals. I glean from them every single day, and the commitment that Erin has to put these on every day and to process all of her volunteers is just phenomenal to me. And she's a phenomenal lady, and she's a friend of mine in many ways. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for her and her ministry and this ministry. So remember to invite people to be a part of it, because you're probably like me and you watch these every day and you get something out of them too. And so to be a guest is really quite an honor, and I take it seriously and I pray about it. And whenever I began to pray about the topic of Lazarus, I literally heard the word wait. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I'm going to talk about how, in your circumstance, you're going to wait. And, it was just seemed like it was really going to be easy. And then I got into John chapter 11. And that is my challenge to you today, is to read John chapter 11. And as you read it, if you even just take a pencil and paper and write it down every time that Jesus says something and see what happens next. The first thing is Jesus says something. And then the second thing is someone overtalks him and says something completely opposite of the point that he is making to them. And I am just blown away by how many times that happens in John chapter 11. And so I'm going to just give you a condensed version because I really do want you to go and read it. But in John chapter 11, it opens up and Lazarus is ill, and Mary and Martha have sent for him. And this is the closest that you're ever going to get to a phone call for the prayer hotline, or to say, they were living in biblical times. There were no phones. And when they sent for Jesus, that was pretty much a sign that things were bleak, okay? And sometimes in our lives, that's the first thing we do. We look at the situation and we see that it is very bleak, and it's like emergency Jesus. And so Jesus is a friend. When they sent that word to Jesus, they said, it's the one that you love. It's Lazarus. It's your friend. And he's the one that's ill. Just putting in that clout. And sometimes I'll do that too. Jesus, it's me. It's your child, the one who was bought by your, sealed with the blood and baptized in Jesus' name. And I have your spirit in me. It's me. Emergency. And so, sometimes it is a couple of days, and by days I mean weeks, before you see him coming down the road, okay? But when I think about in John chapter 11, it shows Jesus' side. It really doesn't go into, in John chapter 11 anyway, it doesn't go into what Mary and Martha and Lazarus were thinking. Lazarus, the one who is laying there, I don't know if he was completely out of it. I don't know if you've ever been with someone when they are so ill that they are about to pass away. Sometimes they're kind of conscious and sometimes they're not. So I don't know how conscious Lazarus was or how much pain he was in. But I know that Jesus wasn't right there physically next to him. And sometimes when we're praying, Jesus is with us and he knows all about us. Jesus knew. He even was speaking to the disciples away from him. He wasn't next to Lazarus, and he spoke what the truth was. He knew the truth. He knew his situation. He said exactly what his situation was. Oh, it's not unto death. And so he knew. So Jesus knows where we are. Okay, but he knows the big picture. And that's what the amazing thing is. He knows the big picture. We do not. We are the ones that are experiencing the shallow breaths and, the coma or whatever is happening, or watching the coma. Okay? We are not fully in on the know of the big picture. But Jesus is. Okay? So he's not panicking. And a couple of days later, he's like, well, Jesus says that they are going to have to go down to Judea. And that Lazarus is asleep. And so the disciples that are with him, here's the first one. As I said, write these down, or really make a note of these. Every single time Jesus gets he gets talked over. Okay, so first is, let's go, or you need to go. And Jesus is like, no, it's not unto death. Different story, carnal story, and his story, God's story, God's point, God's take. Okay? So then it's like he says, okay, Lazarus is asleep. And they're like, okay, if he's asleep, well, then we don't need to go. No, Lazarus is dead. And we're going to have to go through Judea so I can go and raise him from the dead. Judea, we can't go through there because you're going to be stoned because they're going to kill you. I just told you we've got to go through Judea to go there so I can raise him from the dead. It's like, I cannot imagine Jesus' frustration. Even when he got to the site where Lazarus was, and, of course, Mary and Martha, they're both upset with him. It's like, if you would have been here, this wouldn't have happened. And he's probably thinking, if you knew who I am, I can raise him from the dead. And so he says, let's go, to the tomb. And she's, Martha or Mary overtalks him and says, but he stinks. He's dead. And no one is listening to Jesus, the one who knows the big picture. And he's telling them to roll the stone away. And what does he do when the stone rolls away? He raises Lazarus from the dead. But he had also said that he had to go through Judea to get there. And the people were like, oh, you're going to get stoned, and fine, we're all going to get stoned to death. Let's go. But Jesus wants us, this is what he wants to hear. This is what he wants me to tell you, is wait and see. Just wait. Wait and see. He knows your situation. He knows how bleak it is. He knows all the symptoms. He knows what you're going through. He knows the gasping for the breath and watching a situation where someone's gasping for their breath. And I'm just using that even as an allegory. I don't know what your situation is. I don't know the crisis that you're in. But I know that Jesus knows. And Jesus is saying, wait and see. Wait and see. He knows the big picture, and he knows that he is going to be glorified through your circumstance. And we need to know it too, and we need to listen to him, which by listening to him, I mean hear his word, hear the sermons, hear him speaking into our hearts and into our minds. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Or whatever he is saying to us. I've got this. I know the big picture. I'm God. And God will be glorified. But what he was even saying then, when he was telling them in John chapter 11, the Son of Man is going to be glorified. The Son of God is going to be glorified. He was saying he was going to be crucified and rise again, because of Lazarus and that situation being noised abroad. The Pharisees, they were determined that they were going to crucify him. Well, they did, but again, he knew the big picture. He said, destroy this temple, in 3 days I will rise it up. I will raise it up. So just wait and see. That's what the wait is about. The wait and see. It's going to be okay. Whatever you are going through, it's going to be okay. And Jesus knows. He has you, and he knows the big picture. Everything's going to be okay. Just wait and see.